Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents and Conversations Live. I'm your host. Glad you all could be with us. For those tuning in on the radio side at Max WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com, we're glad that you all can be with us. Also joining us on Amazon Live as well as through iHeartRadio and Amazon Music. We're glad you all could be with us as well. I want to welcome in our friends on Amazon. We're going to begin our segment for today. We're excited to welcome to our program today author Teresa Walton-White. She's the author of this book you guys see here. It's called This Is How I Fight My Battles. We're going to talk to Teresa not only about the writing of the book, but what she hopes it's able to do to inspire you and motivate you, regardless of what situation you may find yourself in. If you guys are not staying connected with Teresa, we'll let you know how to be able to do that. For those of you joining us on the Amazon side, see you guys already coming in. Welcome. If you're not doing so already, make sure you guys do hit that follow button. You see it either here in this corner or down below. You also will see Teresa's book. I have the paperback here that I bought, but you can also get the Kindle edition. You can see there as well. Teresa, thank you again for spending some time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Look, the pleasure is definitely all mine. So, Teresa, I was saying to you before we went live here, so glad, first of all, we get to have this chat, but so glad, too, you're able to write this book, because I think regardless of how people find themselves at the beginning of 2025, all of us know what it's like for us to be able to go through situations that we don't know how we're going to be able to see our way out of. What has it been like for you, Teresa, to be able to share your own personal experience and to show how God was able to make a way out for you and how he can do it for others?
There was a kind of a delay in the audio. So can you repeat your question one more time for me on that
sure.
one?
Yeah, no problem. No, I was just
in the audio.
I was just saying, what has it been like for you to be able to show how God was able to help you through your own situation and how he can help others as well?
Okay, it's amazing. It takes a lot to write a book about your own situation, because then you have to reflect, and you have to go back, and you have to go back to a place that sometimes you want to forget. But you also have to realize that sometimes you go through situations in life and it's really not about you. Those situations are there to help you help someone else. So sometimes when you're going through those situations, it makes you realize also how good and how blessed you are. My situation may not have been as bad as somebody else's, or it may have been. It almost is kind of sometimes reminds you, though, that it's not as bad as it seems. As a person who believes in God and believes in the power of God, I realize that sometimes the devil can make a problem seem much bigger than it really is, and he has a way of making you not focus on your purpose, and which is one of the titles in the book, the purpose that you have. And sometimes it just takes things like this to get you to where you need to be. I can do a lot of references on, if this had never happened, this wouldn't have happened. And I'm a firm believer in sometimes the best things in our life are a result of some of the worst things in our life. And so when you can take those things and turn it around, that's how you make it. So for me, it was really, I've been in church all my life, raised in the church, parents and all this kind of stuff. But sometimes those situations come for you to have your own personal knowledge of, who God is and who you are. Sometimes it takes things to make you realize just how strong you are as a person. So those were the things that I experienced when writing this book, and those are the things I'm hoping everybody else gets when they're reading it. It may not be your situation. This particular situation may not be your situation, but whatever your situation is, there's a way to fight the battle, and there's a way to win it.
Teresa, what I thought was so fascinating, and hello to you, Lachelle. Thank you so much for the follow, Lachelle. Lachelle Petty is joining us over on Amazon as well. What I thought was so interesting in reading the book and what you just said is a very important point. And this is where I think sometimes people of faith get it wrong. Because sometimes we will make people feel like, well, you know what? You shouldn't feel bad about that. You know God. But that's not exactly what we need to hear sometimes when we're going through a situation.
No, that doesn't help.
Or when we face it with something. And even though they may mean well, I think that is the thing that we have to fight. You give two examples in the book that I thought were really good. One was the David and Goliath example that all of us know, but also reminding us that in the wilderness, that's where God really showed up for the Israelites. And even then, that wasn't enough for a lot of them too. But how did those examples like David and Goliath, how did that help you as you were dealing with your own Goliath?
Because when you think of Goliath, you think of something that's insurmountable. You think of somebody. Even when we describe and we do research on Goliath, Goliath was almost 10 foot, 11 foot, 12 foot. Everybody has a different, but he was a big man. And
Right.
to David, who was a little shepherd boy, that just seemed like an insurmountable fight. That doesn't seem like something that could not be won. So whenever I thought of this situation, because of course anybody who's been through divorce knows that divorce is like a death, and you're facing not just the divorce itself, because I say all the time, I knew I was when I made the decision to get divorced, that was something that I could defeat. It was what came after the divorce.
Yeah.
It was those emotions that came after, what I had to face afterwards. And so even with David, yeah, David made a decision to fight, but now he had, how am I going to fight this? And so that's what the book is about, is how I fight my battle. It's not just about the divorce, it's about what came after. And it's
Yeah.
what comes after. Sometimes I say all the time that sometimes recovery is worse than the surgery. You can have surgery, you can be cut on, but you're asleep. you that part isn't the issue. Is when
Right.
you come out of surgery, you try to stand up. It's when you come out of surgery and you try. So with David and Goliath, it seemed like an insurmountable thing. How am I going to get through these feelings? And it seemed like it would never end. But because David trusted God, he trusted in all he knew. David even told the king, he said, "Look, I don't need your armor. I can't fight it like this. I
Yeah.
have to fight it the way I know how." And that was through the word of God for David. And so when you think of those things with Goliath, it's just a reference of, it looks like I'm defeated already. I'm sure when David walked up to the Goliath, the people said, "Oh, David's not going to win this." If this was a betting game,
Right.
David, a lot of people would have lost money if this was a betting game.
Right.
David looked like it was going to be that he wasn't going to win, but no one realized who he was depending on.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. That's what we have to do. And even in our own situations, we have to realize who we're depending on. So how do you fight your battle? How did David fight? David said, "You come to me with a sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord." And that's how I had to approach this thing.
Right.
I don't know anything else to do.
Right. And I think that is the reminder, I think, for all of us, Teresa, as we're talking about, no matter what the challenge may be, whether we're talking about those on the West Coast that are, losing everything because of wildfires, or those on the East Coast, and even here in the South, it's freezing,
Right,
and
freezing, yes.
dealing with everything, knowing that we're not going through it by ourselves. I want to say hello to Tina Siemens, who's joining us from Texas over on IG. Hello to you. Gregory Walu, good to be able to see you over there on Amazon. Thank you so much for the follow. K Tom, good to be able to see you as well over there on Amazon as well. If you guys are just tuning in, welcome. You all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents or listening to Conversations live on the radio in Mississippi at Max WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com. We also, of course, welcome those joining us on the podcast at iHeartRadio and Amazon Music. Teresa Walton-White is our guest today. We're talking with her about this book you guys can see here. This is how I fight my battles. Teresa, you were talking, and there's something you wrote I had made a note of. I want to read it for our audience. And again, if you guys have not gotten your copy of the book, you can get it on the Amazon side. For those tuning in on social media, you'll find a link that'll bring you guys over. But this is what you said when you were talking about the children of Israel and then thinking about your own situation. For those who have the print edition, it's on page 57. Teresa, you wrote this. "It was in the scary place that I learned to trust God more. It was in the scary place that I learned he was a heart fixer. It was in this place that I learned that God could and will be everything I need if I just trusted him. All I needed to do was rely on God's promise that he would never leave me or forsake me. As the days and weeks passed, God began to prove himself in miraculous ways. It was during my scary place that God reassured me of who I was and showed me who he was." I want to talk about that because I think that is the part where, again, we as human beings, we mess up too because we think we can fix it. You know what I'm saying? We got this, that was a problem with the Israelites. They were always looking for ways that they could do things. And then when things didn't work out, they wanted to run back to God. What was it like for you? I love the way you phrased it, that God was able to show you not only who you were, but also remind you of who he was.
That's it. As Christians and as people who believe in God, it's okay to be scared.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to say, I don't know. And those are the places, in my opinion, where God works best. When the children of Israel were thirsty and they were going to the promised land, and first when they hit the Red Sea, I don't know how we're going to get across this Red Sea, but God worked it. When they got thirsty, water came out of a rock. I mean, really, you know, when they got hungry, He sent manna from heaven. Even those 40 years that they wandered in the wilderness, the scripture says their shoes never wore out, their clothes never wore out. He took care of them. It was in the wilderness that God did His best work.
Yeah.
And so I brought a message one time and I entitled it, "This wilderness is not so bad." We hate to go there, but think about it. It was in the wilderness that God supplied every single need that they had. And not that He can't supply when you're not in the wilderness, but it was there that God did work that. I mean, how many times are we going to see a sea divide and we walk across on dry land? How many times? Where are you going to see it? It was in the wilderness that began to happen. When water is coming out of a rock, where is that going to happen again? When manna from heaven, these are things that happen in the wilderness. These are things that happen in a place where they thought there was no hope. Because remember, the wilderness is a dry place. Where there is no water, there is no life. And that's what the wilderness represents, the desert. Where there's no water, there's no life. But God proved that even in your worst situation, in your worst place, in your dry place, in your place that God that you don't know what to do, God will make a way. And so it was there that it proved who God was to me. It was there God proved that I will heal you everywhere you hurt. I have to say this all the time, is that I said this after I came out of my situation. I was healing. I said, I've come to know God in a totally different way.
Right.
This situation pushed me closer to God. This situation drove me to my knees. This situation made me fast more than I normally would. It made me study more than I normally would. I woke up eating the word. I went to bed eating the word. And my father, he gave me a piece of paper that had 4 scriptures on it. One was, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. All things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. Though you sow in tears, you're going to one day reap in joy. Those scriptures that he handed me were those scriptures that I had to meditate on. So it's in the wilderness. It's in the wilderness that God can do his best work. He begins to make you stronger, and you come to a better place.
Right. I love that. And I want to say hello to you, Mike G. Embrace the Power over on IG. Appreciate you. Grace, I think is it Grace Houston? I think it was. That's just so.
Yes, Grace Houston.
Great Grace. She says, I'm so proud of you. It's always in those scary moments. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be scared. And Grace also says God will still make a way. And I think that's the big thing. And this is what I really got from it. I'm so glad that I'm having a chance to talk to you about this, Teresa, because I think what happens sometimes, even you reference it in the book, and this is a good point. Yes, David was able to defeat Goliath with God's help. But as you reminded us, Goliath had brothers. So just because we've gotten over one challenge does not mean there will not be other challenges. But because of what God did for David, he had that to know that no matter what came after that, that God would still have his back. How has that reassured you? Because again, we may get through one situation and we thought, there's no way I know how to get out of this. And God helped us through it. How did that help you moving forward to make sure that, as you were just talking about, I'm glad you shared that about your dad in the scriptures, that no matter what came after, that God still had your back?
Because when David, he killed Goliath, but later on we see where the brothers came, and if I'm not mistaken, in that the people even told David, "Don't worry about it, we got this." And so even I went through the divorce, I signed the papers, and yes, it was my situation, but after that, I began to lean on those people who prayed for me, my parents, my church family, my brothers and my sisters. I began to rely on those people to help me, because even though we had gone through the situation, I still needed somebody praying for me. I still needed somebody telling me it's going to be okay. and encouraging me to trust God. So it's okay to have people who are there. Even look, Jesus had Peter. I mean, but Peter may have went too fast with it, but Jesus had Peter. It's okay to have people who are there to support and to be there for you. We can have that and still walk through this walk, because in this thing, you're going to need some help. It's not meant for us to do this by ourselves.
Right.
That's part of the problem. And this is where, when you get by yourself, this is when your suicide spirits come in, your suicide thoughts come in, your feelings of hopelessness come in, because now you're just here by yourself. But when you're surrounded by people who care, who are praying, who can get a pray, when you don't, those nights that I was crying, or those nights where things didn't just seem good, I pick up the phone, I call my sister. My sisters will tell you, I've called them at 2:00 in the morning. And like I said, it's not just about the divorce, it's about the things that come after. See, divorce had a brother called loneliness. Divorce had a sister called depression. A divorce had a sister, that called embarrassment. Those are all things that come along with these issues. They had brothers and cousins and nieces and nephews. It was all of it. And then, of course, when those things come, and those things come at you like a flood, because the scripture talks about when the enemy comes at you like a flood, it'll all rush in at one time, and you feel like you're overwhelmed, and you feel like you're about to drown. You need those people around you that'll help you fight. So those brothers that we talk about, listen, people, you have to have somebody to help you fight. You can't fight them all by yourself. You can't fight them all by yourself. You have to have somebody help you fight. But realize, once you get through with this, there may be some more that comes with it. And those were the things we had to fight. And that's what this book is about, those things that you have to fight, even after you've killed Goliath. Because remember, David had killed Goliath, cut his head off, and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
There was still something coming afterwards.
That's right. Teresa Merritt Watson, hello to you. She says the wilderness strengthens us in our walk with Christ. That is so true. And I think that's why, again, this book is so timely. And that's why I think conversations like this are so important, Teresa. So I want to ask you, because I noticed even on social media, as you were talking about the book and sharing about this conversation we're having today, one of the things you said that I thought was interesting was that even if people have read the book once, there are still things they can come back to in this book. What is your hope now that you have this platform and this book as a published author? What do you hope this book does for people in reaching them in their own situation?
I'm hoping that this book, when you're going through this situation and you're going through some things that you're not sure how it's going to work, I'm hoping that you pick up this book and read. I had to do that. I have had a situation even on my job last year that I had to pick up this book and remember that God is still on the throne, that God is still helping out, that God is still there to to help me get through this. I had to remember those things, even with situations on my job, if things happen in your family. I'm hoping that this book will encourage you and make you realize that even though these feelings come, God is yet able to help you go through these things, and to realize that everything has a purpose. I always say God never wastes an experience.
Yeah.
No matter what you're experiencing, there is a lesson. So that's why one of the chapters is called, talks about your purpose. There is a reason. I just believe there is a reason. Mary said, I'm going to ponder this in my heart. There is a reason. You may not see it now,
right?
But there is a reason for these things. And now I'm going to say this. Now I see why some people say you didn't have to go through a divorce. Yes, I did. In order to get to the place I am now, in order for me to trust God, like I trust him now, in order for me to be sitting here witnessing this, to another young lady who may be going through the same thing, or other women who may be going through the same thing, or whatever issue you have, I had to go through this in order to get me to where I am now. Somebody has to have a testimony.
Yeah.
You don't always want it to be you.
Right. And I'll add, Teresa, to remind people of what is possible. I think a lot of times, and I've heard people say, well, yeah, it says it in the Bible, but that's not happening today. But we know that he's the same God. And I think that is the part to know that it can happen for us, that he can get us through those situations, just like he did it for others as well. And I think that, again, one of the big things he talked about in this book at the end was about forgiveness. That is such a big thing in so many ways for family, relationships, knowing the importance of it, not for the person, but for us and our relationship with God. I love the fact that you're able to bring that up. That's why this book, again, is so timely. Again, everyone, Teresa Walton-White has been our guest. The book is This Is How I Fight My Battles, available right here on Amazon. You all can get the paperback or the Kindle edition of the book right now. Teresa, really enjoyed this conversation with you. Let our audience know, how can they stay connected with you?
I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm also there. For the book, if you would like to get a copy of the book, you can inbox me directly through Facebook or Instagram, especially if you want a signed copy, and I can get that to you. If not, it is available on Amazon. Just type in that This Is How I Fight My Battles or my name, and the book will also come up. So I tell people all the time, I am here. I'm here to encourage. I'm here to do whatever whatever God has for me to do. I just want to encourage people and to let them know that they can win this battle. There is a way to fight it. You just got to have the right weapon. So I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you all on today.
Appreciate that. Sheila says, "Speak, my sister." That's over there on Amazon. Again, Teresa, congratulations to you. Looking forward to our next chat together.
Yes, thank you.
And more than welcome. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents, and for our radio audience at Conversations Live. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.